I'm Sadie, a 23-year-old graphic designer based in Portland. I can still recall the tight knot of anxiety in my stomach as I drove to my sister Lindsay's college graduation party. In our family, graduation gifts were a significant event, and Lindsay's celebration was shaping up to be spectacular. What I didn't anticipate was how dramatically my parents would display their favoritism that day. The stark contrast between her new BMW Gran Coupe and my $2 bill made me feel more insignificant than ever before. If you're watching this, please comment below to let me know where you're from. And if you've ever felt unappreciated by your family, hit that like and subscribe button, because I want to share how I finally found the courage to leave a toxic family situation. A sibling in the spotlight. Growing up in Seattle, I always felt like the runner-up in my parents' eyes. My father, Michael, was a successful corporate attorney at a prestigious law firm, and my mother, Karen, ran her own interior design business, serving wealthy clients across the Pacific Northwest. We lived in a beautiful two-story house in an upscale neighborhood with a view of Lake Washington. To an outsider, we looked like the perfect American family, but our home life was far from it. My sister Lindsay, who is 3 years younger than me, became the center of our family's world the moment she was born. While I have vague memories of being a doted-on only child, those quickly faded after Lindsay arrived. She inherited our mother's natural blonde hair and bright blue eyes, while I took after my father's side with brown hair and hazel eyes. This physical resemblance to our mother seemed to create an immediate and powerful bond between them. The signs of favoritism were subtle at first. For Lindsay's 5th birthday, my parents rented a pony and hired a professional party planner. 3 years earlier, my own 5th birthday had been a simple backyard party with a homemade cake. When I turned 10, I received a new bike from a local sporting goods store. When Lindsay turned 10, she got a custom-designed model ordered from Europe. These material differences were painful, but the emotional disparity was what truly hurt. My achievements were met with quick, perfunctory praise, while Lindsay's, no matter how small, was celebrated with great fanfare. I earned straight A's throughout middle school, making the honor roll every semester. My parents would simply say, "That's nice, Sadie," and tape my report card to the refrigerator for a week. When Lindsay brought home BS and CS with a single A in drama class, my parents took the family out for a fancy dinner and couldn't stop talking about how proud they were. I tried everything to earn their approval. I joined the debate team and won regional competitions. I volunteered at the local animal shelter every weekend for 3 years. I even taught myself graphic design and started selling my artwork online while still in high school. But nothing seemed to measure up to Lindsay just existing. My grandfather, my father's father, was the only one who seemed to notice the imbalance. He lived about an hour away, and I often took the bus to visit him on weekends. "You've got a special eye, Sadie," he would say, looking through my sketchbooks. "Not everyone can see the world the way you do." He bought me my first professional drawing tablet when I was 16 and encouraged me to pursue art school despite my parents' skepticism. When I graduated from high school as valedictorian, I was sure my moment of recognition had finally arrived. My speech earned a standing ovation from the crowd. As I scanned the audience for my family, I spotted my parents in the 4th row. They were smiling, but their attention was divided. My mother was leaning toward Lindsay, fixing her hair for photos. My father was checking his watch. After the ceremony, they spent more time talking about Lindsay's upcoming high school experience than my achievement or future plans. That night, at what was supposed to be my graduation dinner, my mother announced that Lindsay had been selected for an elite summer soccer program. The conversation immediately shifted, and my graduation became a footnote in an evening that transformed into a celebration of Lindsay's athletic prospects. I sat quietly, pushing food around my plate, wondering if I would ever be enough. By the time I left for college, I had learned to lower my expectations to protect myself from disappointment. Yet, deep down, I still held onto a sliver of hope that someday my parents would see me, truly see me, and be as proud of me as they were of my sister. A different path. College became my escape. I had been accepted to several schools, including my parents' alma mater, but I chose the Pacific Northwest College of Art in Portland. It was far enough from Seattle to give me some space, but close enough that I could visit home if I needed to. My parents had strongly pushed for me to attend their university, arguing that connections mattered more than a specialized education. When I stood firm on my choice, my father sighed and said, "Well, I guess some people have to learn the hard way." I had received a partial scholarship covering about half of my tuition. Given our family's financial stability and their frequent reminders that they were saving for both of their daughters' education, I assumed my parents would help with the rest. Instead, they informed me they would pay only a quarter of the remaining costs. Art school is expensive, my father explained, and not exactly a practical investment. We need to make sure we have enough set aside for Lindsay's education, too. 2 years later, when Lindsay decided to attend the University of Washington to study communications, my parents covered her entire tuition, bought her a new MacBook Pro, and leased her an apartment near campus so she wouldn't have to live in the dorms. Meanwhile, I worked 20 hours a week at a coffee shop and another 15 as a campus design assistant to make ends meet, all while maintaining a full course load. Despite the financial strain, college was a transformative experience. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who valued creativity and saw my talent as something special. My professors praised my work ethic and unique design perspective. I made friends who shared my interests and didn't make me feel like I was constantly competing for attention or validation. Phone calls home became less frequent, dropping from weekly to monthly. I noticed that each time I hung up, a weight would lift from my shoulders. I hadn't realized how much tension I carried when interacting with my family until I experienced the relief of its absence. During my junior year, I met Alex in a digital media class. He was studying film production and had transferred from UCLA. With warm brown eyes and an easy laugh, he radiated a calm confidence that drew me in immediately. Our relationship developed quickly, built on shared creative passions and long conversations about everything from color theory to existential philosophy. The first time Alex came with me to Seattle for a weekend visit, he noticed things I had become blind to through years of normalization. "Why does your mom always interrupt you?" he asked as we drove back to Portland. "And did you see how your dad spent an hour helping Lindsay with her class project but changed the subject when you mentioned your design award?" Having someone else observe the dynamic made it impossible for me to dismiss my feelings as oversensitivity. Alex invited me to spend Thanksgiving with his family in San Francisco. The contrast was jarring. His parents asked me detailed questions about my work and education. They displayed genuine interest in my answers, never checking their phones or shifting the conversation to another topic. His mother pulled out photos of Alex's childhood art and talked about how they'd always known he had a creative spirit. His father, a construction contractor with no background in arts, had educated himself about design principles so he could better understand Alex's passion. This is what family is supposed to feel like, I realized as we helped clear the dinner table. The thought brought both comfort and grief. My college graduation ceremony was held on a rainy May afternoon. My parents arrived late, having hit traffic on the drive down from Seattle, and left immediately after the ceremony ended. "Lindsay has a big soccer game tomorrow," my mother explained as they hurried back to their car. "We need to get on the road." Their graduation gift to me was a $50 gift card to an office supply store. "For your new career," my father said with what seemed like an attempt at enthusiasm. I thanked them politely, hiding my disappointment. It wasn't about the monetary value. It was what the gift represented. They hadn't taken the time to learn what tools I actually needed as a designer or what might be meaningful to me. In contrast, my grandfather gave me a set of high-end graphic design software and a subscription to an online learning platform specializing in advanced design techniques. "To help that talent of yours keep growing," he said, hugging me tightly. He was the only family member who stayed for my graduation dinner with friends. 3 months later, my grandfather passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. I lost not only my biggest supporter but also the one person who made me feel like a valued member of my family. At his funeral, my grief was compounded by my mother's comment. "It's good that Lindsay got to play that soccer game. Dad would have wanted to see her succeed before he passed." After graduation, I built my career step by step, starting with freelance projects while working at a local design agency to gain experience. I moved into my own apartment, a small studio in a converted industrial building in Portland's Pearl District. The distance from my family, both physical and emotional, allowed me to focus on building a life that reflected my values rather than chasing approval I would never receive. The final humiliation. The invitation to Lindsay's college graduation party arrived in February, though the event wouldn't take place until May. It came in a thick cream envelope with gold embossing, more like a wedding invitation than a graduation announcement. Inside was a formal card requesting my presence at a celebration of Lindsay Marie Bennett's graduation from the University of Washington at my parents' home. My mother called the day after the invitation would have arrived in my mailbox. "Did you get the invitation?" she asked without preamble. When I confirmed that I had, she launched into details about the party. "We're having it catered by that new restaurant downtown, the one that was featured in Seattle magazine. The guest list is around 70 people. Lindsay has so many friends, and your father wants to invite some colleagues to celebrate." When I mentioned that the date fell during a busy period at work, my mother's tone sharpened. "This is your sister's college graduation, Sadie. It's not optional. Family shows up for these things." The irony of her insistence, given their hasty departure from my own graduation, was not lost on me. But I kept that thought to myself. "I'll make it work," I promised, already calculating which projects I would need to reschedule. Over the next 3 months, my mother called weekly with updates about the party preparations. She never asked about my work or life in Portland. Each conversation revolved entirely around the upcoming celebration, the custom photo backdrop they were having designed, the specialty cocktails named after Lindsay's achievements, the professional photographer they had booked. Despite my limited budget, I wanted to give Lindsay a thoughtful graduation gift. I spent weekends creating a custom digital illustration of the UW campus with subtle elements representing Lindsay's college experiences hidden throughout the design. I had it professionally printed and framed, spending nearly a week's worth of grocery money in the process. As the party approached, I realized I had nothing suitable to wear. Most of my wardrobe consisted of casual clothes appropriate for my creative workplace. Knowing my mother would notice and comment on anything less than perfect, I spent another chunk of my savings on a navy blue dress that would meet her standards of propriety. I asked Alex to come with me, needing his steady presence to help me navigate the weekend. "Are you sure you want me there?" he asked. "It sounds like it might be stressful." I assured him that his presence would make it bearable. In truth, I wasn't sure I could face my family alone. The 4-hour drive from Portland to Seattle gave us plenty of time to discuss strategies for managing the weekend. "We'll stay Friday and Saturday nights, then leave Sunday morning," I planned. That's enough to show support without extending the visit unnecessarily. Alex suggested we prepare some neutral topics of conversation and agreed to create signals if either of us needed rescue from uncomfortable situations. As we drove, memories of previous family gatherings surfaced. Lindsay's high school graduation where my parents had given her a diamond tennis bracelet, my 21st birthday, which my parents had forgotten entirely until I called them that evening, Christmas 2 years ago when Lindsay received a new iPhone and designer handbag while I got a generic bath gift set that still had the clearance sticker partially visible on the bottom. "Maybe this time will be different," I said, more to convince myself than because I believed it. "Maybe now that we're both adults, things will be more balanced." We arrived at my parents' house Friday afternoon to find it transformed. The front yard had been professionally landscaped with new flowering plants. The house itself had been repainted from the beige I remembered to a modern grey with white trim. Inside, the furniture had been updated, and the kitchen remodeled with high-end appliances. "You've renovated," I observed as my mother greeted us with brief, perfunctory hugs. She hadn't mentioned any home improvements during our weekly calls. "Oh, yes, we finished it last fall," she replied dismissively before turning her attention to my appearance. "That dress is nice, Sadie, but you should have gone with something more colorful for the photos. Lindsay is wearing teal." She glanced at my hair with a slight frown. "Do you want me to help you style that tomorrow before guests arrive?" My father emerged from his study long enough to shake Alex's hand and give me a quick side hug. "Good to see you, kiddo," he said, already turning back toward the door. "I've got to finish setting up the projector for the slideshow." It's going to be quite something, Lindsay's whole life story in pictures. The rest of the afternoon brought a steady stream of relatives arriving for the weekend. Aunt Patty and Uncle Jim from Spokane, cousins from my mother's side flying in from Chicago, my father's brother and his family driving up from Portland, though they had never made that same drive for any of my events. Each greeting followed the same pattern: surprise at seeing me, Sadie. How long has it been? Vague questions about my life, still doing that art thing, and quick pivots to discussions about Lindsay's accomplishments. By evening, I had retreated to the guest room, ostensibly to unpack, but really to gather myself. Alex found me sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. "Your childhood photos are gone," he observed, gesturing to the hallway. I hadn't noticed, but he was right. The gallery wall that once held a mix of family pictures now displayed only images of Lindsay, her soccer tournaments, school plays, prom, college acceptance. "I'm just decoration here," I whispered. "Background scenery for the Lindsay show." Alex sat beside me, taking my hand. "We can leave right now if you want to. Just say the word." I shook my head. "If I leave, they win. They get to say I'm selfish and dramatic. I need to get through this weekend with dignity intact." Later that night, I overheard my parents discussing final details for the party. "The car is still being detailed, but they promised it will be ready by noon tomorrow," my father said. "We'll need to coordinate the timing perfectly." "Lindsay is going to be so surprised," my mother replied, excitement evident in her voice. "She's been hinting about wanting a new car, but she has no idea what we've planned." I felt a familiar sinking sensation in my stomach. Whatever they had planned for Lindsay, I knew it would be extravagant, and I knew nothing comparable had ever been or would ever be planned for me. The unspoken message. Saturday dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the outdoor celebration my parents had envisioned. By 10 o'clock in the morning, caterers were setting up in the backyard, arranging elegant serving stations under white canopy tents. Florists arrived with arrangements of blue and gold flowers, UW colors, creating elaborate centerpieces for each table. A string quartet began setting up in the corner of the garden, tuning their instruments as waitstaff in crisp uniforms arranged champagne flutes on silver trays. I offered to help several times, but my mother waved me away. "It's all being handled professionally," she said. "Why don't you just relax until guests arrive?" The suggestion felt like a dismissal, a reminder that I wasn't needed or particularly wanted. By 3 o'clock, the backyard had transformed into something resembling a wedding reception. 50 round tables covered in silk cloths surrounded a small wooden platform serving as a stage. A professional photographer circulated, capturing the elaborate preparations. In one corner, a bartender set up behind a custom ice sculpture of the UW logo. Guests began arriving at 4 o'clock, a parade of family, friends, colleagues, and Lindsay's vast social circle. My mother greeted each person effusively, accepting gifts and directing them to the extensive buffet. My father worked the crowd, sharing anecdotes about Lindsay's academic achievements and athletic prowess. I stood awkwardly near the gift table, making small talk with relatives who seemed surprised to discover my continued existence. "You're looking healthy," my mother's cousin remarked, her eyes traveling over my figure in a way that made me instantly self-conscious. "Your sister got all the Bennett height, didn't she? Good thing you wear those heels." My father's college roommate peered at me through bifocals. "Graphic design, is it? Is there much money in that? I always thought you'd follow your father into law." A distant aunt I barely recognized patted my arm sympathetically. "Not everyone can be the star of the family. Support roles are important, too, dear." Each interaction reinforced my peripheral status in the family narrative. I was the footnote, the afterthought, the other daughter rarely mentioned in Christmas letters or dinner party conversations. At precisely 5:30, my father clinked his glass to gather everyone's attention. The murmur of conversation died down as he stepped onto the small stage, microphone in hand. "Friends and family," he began, his voice carrying across the garden. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate our incredible daughter, Lindsay." He gestured toward Lindsay, resplendent in her teal dress, her blonde hair styled in elegant waves. She beamed under the attention, lifting her hand in a small, practiced wave. My father launched into a 10-minute speech detailing Lindsay's journey through college, her academic achievements, a 3.4 GPA, which he described as exceptional, her position as social chair of her sorority, her internship at a local TV station. He spoke about her determination, her charisma, her bright future in communications. Not once did he mention his other daughter, the one who had graduated 3 years earlier with honors, who had already established herself professionally, who was standing just 20 feet away. And so, he concluded, we couldn't be prouder of the woman you've become, Lindsay. You exemplify everything we hoped for in a daughter. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. I clapped, too, the motion automatic, while my mind registered the implications of his words. Everything they hoped for in a daughter. The daughter I had failed to be. After the speech, guests were invited to present their gifts. Lindsay sat in a decorated chair, opening envelope after envelope containing checks, gift cards, and cash. She received jewelry from aunts, designer accessories from her friends, and an expensive camera from my father's parents to document your journey after college. When it was my turn, I handed her the carefully wrapped frame containing my custom artwork. She tore through the paper quickly, barely glancing at the illustration before setting it aside. Thanks, she said, already looking past me to the next gift bearer. I returned to Alex's side, swallowing hard against the lump in my throat. After the smaller gifts had been opened, my father took the microphone again. We have one more surprise for our graduate, he announced, his voice brimming with excitement. Karen and I wanted to give Lindsay something special to mark this milestone and help her begin her professional journey in style. He led the crowd around to the front of the house, where a car-sized object sat in the driveway covered by a large blue top. With a flourish, my father pulled away the covering to reveal a brand new BMW Gran Coupe, gleaming white with a massive red bow on the hood. The crowd gasped collectively. Lindsay screamed, jumping up and down before rushing to the car, running her hands over its sleek surface in disbelief. Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's exactly what I wanted. She threw herself into our father's arms, then our mother's, tears of joy streaming down her face. I stood frozen, memories flooding back of my own graduation. There had been no party, no speeches, certainly no luxury car, just a $50 gift card presented in a plain envelope over a rushed lunch before my parents drove back to Seattle. As guests clustered around the new car, exclaiming over its features and taking photos of Lindsay behind the wheel, I found myself alone at the edge of the driveway. Alex had gone to get us drinks, a momentary respite from the spectacle. In that moment of solitude, my father approached me, an envelope in his hand. We have something for you, too, Sadie, he said, his tone suggesting I should be grateful for the afterthought. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a $2 bill. Not even a new one, but an old, creased bill that had clearly been sitting in someone's wallet for years. My confusion must have shown on my face because my father quickly explained, it's seed money to start saving for your own car. He chuckled at his own joke. You know, since you're still driving that old Honda from college. From nearby, I heard laughter. My Uncle Jim had overheard and found the gift amusing. Better start saving those pennies, Sadie, he called out. In that moment, something inside me shattered. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the car. It was about the message being sent loud and clear, you are worth less. You will always be worth less. I mumbled something about needing the restroom and fled into the house, tears already blurring my vision. I locked myself in the powder room, sank to the floor, and finally allowed the sobs to come. Years of accumulated hurt poured out of me, my body shaking with the force of my grief. Not just for the day's humiliation but for a lifetime of being the less loved child. A gentle knock at the door was followed by Alex's concerned voice. Sadie, are you okay? When I didn't answer, he spoke again, lower this time. I saw what happened. I'm so sorry. Can I come in? I unlocked the door with numb fingers. Alex slipped inside immediately, pulling me into his arms. He didn't offer platitudes or tell me I was overreacting. He simply held me while I cried, his steady presence an anchor in the storm of my emotions. What's wrong with me? I whispered when the worst of the tears had passed. Why have they never loved me the way they love her? Alex tilted my face up to meet his gaze. Nothing is wrong with you, Sadie. Nothing. This is about them, not you. Some people are incapable of seeing the value in what's right in front of them. I took a deep, shuddering breath, using a tissue to wipe my face. I need to pull myself together. If I go out there looking like this, it'll just give them more reason to think I'm the problem. You don't have to go back out there, Alex said firmly. We can leave right now. For a moment, I was tempted, but something in me wasn't ready to surrender the field. No, I'm going to get through this, but then I need to make some decisions. I repaired my makeup as best I could and returned to the party, plastering on a smile that felt like it might crack my face. No one seemed to notice my absence or my return. Lindsay was still showing off her new car, my parents basking in the admiration of their guests. As the evening progressed, I moved through the celebration like a ghost, present but unseen. I sipped champagne that tasted like nothing, made small talk that didn't register in my mind, and watched the family dynamics with a new clarity. This wasn't a temporary situation or a misunderstanding. This was the fundamental reality of my place in the family. I overheard my mother talking to her sister near the dessert table. Lindsay always knew exactly what she wanted, she was saying proudly. Not like Sadie, who could never seem to find her direction. The fact that I had known I wanted to pursue design since I was 14, that I had built a successful career in my chosen field, apparently counted for nothing in her assessment. Outside, Lindsay was taking friends for rides in her new car, the sound of excited squeals and the BMW's engine occasionally drifting through the open windows. My parents stood on the front steps, watching, arms around each other, faces glowing with pride.